All right, guys, welcome. So I am here with John Lee Dumas, aka JLD. If you haven't seen his show, MicroStrategy Today, it's awesome. He gives like 15 minutes a day of really, really incredible content. So I wanted to have him on today because you're a MicroStrategy fan, a MicroStrategy bull, I should say, a MicroStrategy passionate warrior, I should say. So anyway, man, let's just spitball today with everybody. We can have people ask questions in the chat as this fills up. And I would love to know, just for you personally, like what came first. I'm guessing Bitcoin and then MicroStrategy, and just a little of your aha moment of like, wow, Bitcoin is it. And then what was your aha moment for MicroStrategy?
Absolutely. I'll even back up just a little bit more than that, just to kind of paint the whole picture. So
Yeah.
12 years ago, I came up with what I thought was this brilliant idea to launch the first daily podcast in the world that was going to interview entrepreneurs literally 7 days a week. And you can see my mic flag right here.
I
It's called
remember I was on it years ago, bro.
It's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I've now
Great
interviewed
podcast.
4,500 entrepreneurs. I called it Entrepreneurs on Fire, and I'm still doing it today. To this day, it's 7 days a week. I interview amazing entrepreneurs, Ted included. We'll have to link up your show. We should link up your show, actually. People should go listen to that. That'll be fun for them to watch.
Cool. Yeah.
And I just loved doing it. So I was interviewing entrepreneurs 7 days a week. And one thing I started noticing in like 2018, 2019, that I just started interviewing a lot more people that were talking about Bitcoin. And I'd heard about it over the years. And I actually have, of course, my like Bitcoin moment of 2014 that was devastating because I didn't listen to that person. We all have that story, and I have that. And it was, on a cruise ship. And I just was like, yeah, I'm going to follow up on that. I never did. So, whatever. But then in 18 and 19, I started just having these conversations on my podcast about Bitcoin. And I was like, I need to learn more. So I read the Bitcoin Standard. I went down the well, and I'm like, okay, I'm buying Bitcoin. And, I've been buying Bitcoin pretty much ever since then, and been riding the ups.
What year did you start on Bitcoin?
2018.
Yeah, cool. Me too. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
yeah.
I rode the ups, rode the downs. I just keep stacking the sats and making things happen. And life is good. And unfortunately, and I still don't know how it took me this long, because you were way ahead of it than I was, to really get what Michael Saylor was saying on stages and in interviews, because I was listening to all the content I could about Bitcoin and about, different things. And of course, Michael Saylor kept coming up, but like it was kind of going in one ear, out the other, like not his stuff on Bitcoin, but just what MicroStrategy was doing. I didn't get it. Like back in 2020, 2021, 2022, it just wasn't clicking for me. And again, another big mistake. But luckily, I kept listening to content. I'm a big consumer of audio, of video. And finally, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but Michael Saylor said something where I'm like, this guy gets it. I'm going to go actually do some research on MicroStrategy. And this was like in early 2024. And I went down that rabbit hole. I immediately, the light bulb went on because I already understood Bitcoin. So like, it was an easy leap for me to see what Michael Saylor was doing with MicroStrategy. And so I was just like, I got to get into this. So I started buying, of course, like, my friends and family were telling me this stock was at like $22, like just a couple months ago. And now it's at 100. What are you doing? And like, I just was like, it doesn't matter. I just kept dollar cost averaging in. And I've been doing that really ever since. And then it was about 3 months ago, Ted, where I said,
what was the light bulb though when you started that? Was that 2024?
Early 2024.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
So early 2024, I started dollar cost averaging into MSTR.
Yep.
But then what did I find myself doing? Just falling more in love with the company, because everything just starts clicking more and more the further you go down that rabbit hole. You're like, this guy has an asymmetrical understanding of what's happening, the information nobody else is caught up. 1% of people get Bitcoin, 1% of people get MicroStrategy. And I'm in that 1% of 1%. Like this is the first time I've been this far ahead of something, even though I was, 4 years late. I still was so far ahead of so many other people. So far ahead.
Yeah.
And it's just the lack of understanding that people had about what MicroStrategy was doing. And so what did I find myself doing, Ted? Every single day, I was getting up and I was just consuming everything about that company, MSTR, Michael Saylor. I was going down the rabbit hole on X, on YouTube, watching your show, watching all the videos that were out there about it. And I'm like, I'm already spending a couple hours a day doing this. And I'm pretty good at this thing called interviewing / producing content because I've been doing that for 12 and a half years.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a show because there was this show that there is this show that I'm sure you've seen called MSTR Daily. The guy, Matt, he puts out a great show.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
But guess what? It's not daily.
Yeah.
It's not even once a week anymore. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
I hope he comes back and starts producing more because
Yeah.
he's great. And I'm in his pro program, by the way, which is fantastic. He does one show a week for us there. But I was like, there's not a show that's out there that's producing daily content on MicroStrategy in the form that I want to consume. So I'm going to make that show. And I launched it, about 2.5 months ago. I literally have not missed a day. Christmas, New Year's, the shows came out every single day. Have not
because you love it, bro. You love it. Isn't it fun? It's fun, man.
I'm gonna be doing the research anyways. So why not turn it into something special? And I mean, your show's doing great, your channel. I mean, but I'm blown away because this is my first big time foray into YouTube. My show's always been Apple, Spotify with Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Yeah.
But I'm at 12,000 subscribers. Every show that I'm doing is getting over 10,000 views.
Yeah.
I have one that got over 40,000 views. So I'm like, wow, I'm touching a nerve. There's a passionate cult-like, fan base around Michael Saylor and MSTR, as there should be.
Yeah.
You and myself are two individuals who are helping make that even bigger, which is great. But bro, we haven't even started yet. Can you imagine what's going to happen when this stock hits 1,000, which is happening soon?
It's going to happen this year.
This year. Oh,
yeah.
It might happen this quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to happen. Look at, do you know Mark Lack? Look at Mark. Mark's over there. Mark,
what's up, I know Mark. Mark's a past, there. He's a past guest.
Mark's a Bitcoin lover, man. He's a Bitcoin lover, MicroStrategy, all that. Mark's an innovator too. So okay. So this is interesting, but you're kind of like, I'm just going to get into it, but you're kind of like a innovative, ahead of the curve guy, right? We were just talking earlier pre-show. You moved to Puerto Rico 9 years ago, right? You started your podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire.
12 years ago.
What the moment of Bitcoin in 2018, what was the aha moment when you were like, wow, this is it. I get it.
So the aha moment is I was listening to an episode and the individual, I think the phrase that really clicked it for me said that, hey, listen, we get up every day and we send emails. That didn't exist 20 years ago. You couldn't just wake up and send an email. But now everybody does it every single second of every single day, and it's free and it's easy, and boom. That's what you can do with Bitcoin. You can get up and right now you can send Bitcoin to anybody in the world. And it's just like sending an email, and it's going to arrive to them. There's no intermediary. There's no, 7,000, middlemen taking their little fees out. There's none of that. It's just boom to boom. I want to wake up this morning and say, hey, Ted put on a great show. I want to send him 1,000 sats. Here he goes. And I'm off to the race. And I was like, that's obviously going to rule the world one day. And that just got me to then read the Bitcoin Standard, which was then, game over. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? It was 2000. When did COVID start? Was it 2019 or 2020?
I think
right?
20. Yeah.
Yeah. So I bought first in 2018 was the first thing I bought. It's funny. I actually bought mining equipment and went in with somebody in 2018. I had no idea. I just didn't have the vocabulary yet. Didn't know what miners were.
Did you ever mine a Bitcoin?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. In fact, and so the deal was I put up the money with this guy. He bought the equipment. He housed it because I knew nothing about it. And so we started mining when it was at 3,000.
Wow.
Right. So I remember, I'm just going to give you my quick thing. Right. So I remember in 2017, I was skiing. And I think that was when Bitcoin went from 3,000 up to whatever. It did its run that year up to 17,000 or whatever it was. Right. And I remember the run up. And I remember sitting at the table with a bunch of friends while we were skiing, and everybody's trying to buy in as it's running up. And I was trying to buy in, but my thing got jammed. It wouldn't accept me onto Coinbase. So I could never get in, and I could never buy
I lost out.
Right. So I'm I was the only one at the table that literally couldn't buy in. And then we had the crash, right? Because I was lost interest, whatever. Okay. And then when the crash hit is when I was like, well, I should probably buy in at this thing at $3,000. So I started buying some Bitcoin. And then I got approached from a friend of a friend about the mining equipment. And I did not have the vocabulary, had no idea what he was talking about, but it sounded interesting to me. And I looked at the math and I'm like, if we could just mine this and we could be mining some Bitcoin, like that could be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Long story short, we maybe mined for like a year or so to where I didn't understand enough that the electricity or whatever he was paying for at the time, he couldn't keep on the light bill. He was saying it's just a metaphor, right? And so he shut it down because it became too expensive, but it wasn't expensive. Had I known, I would have just funded the cost of that too, but I didn't have the understanding yet of like, what is this thing? What do miners do, etc. But fast forward to then the real light bulb moment was when COVID hit. And that's when I started I was consuming a lot of content at the time. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my brother. It was around 7,000 at the time. I'm like, this is it, dude. Like, this is literally the answer. And my brother's like 14 months older than me. And together we just went in, man, like partner in crime. Let's just go in. And we just bought and bought and bought and bought.
Beautiful. Man. Yeah, I'm so close to your timeline. Like I watched it run up to like 17 or 19,000 and then it started crashing down and then it stabilized for like a hot minute, like around 9,000. And I was like, oh man, I'm so brilliant. I timed the bottom and I bought in then like substantially. And then it went down to 3,000 and I'm like, oh my God, like 70% drop or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? I don't know if this is going to zero because I hadn't like been, I wasn't at that time 100% the maxi that I am now, but I wasn't going to sell. So I held on to that and I've just never sold.
Well, yeah, well, it's great. So like on that idea, like giving people who might be new to Bitcoin or MicroStrategy, like going up first, even on the Bitcoin dips and living through that, it's not a fun experience.
No,
okay? Like not at all. So like for you, this is not financial advice today, guys, not legal advice, not tax advice at all. But for you, like if you were starting new into Bitcoin and this was your first bull run that you're sitting through, and maybe you're buying now or you bought, months back, how would you coach yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
So again, like you mentioned, not financial advice of anything we say today. So this is exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
I would say this is the amounts of money that I'm willing to invest into this overall venture. I would take 50% of that and I would immediately buy because I believe in Bitcoin and I believe in its uptrends. And then I would set a dollar amount for the other 50% to dollar cost average on a weekly basis. Every single week, I would buy the exact same dollar amount going in. So that if it does have its dips and it goes down to 90, 84, 75, whatever it could, retrace to, whoever knows, that, I at least feel like, okay, like I'm dollar cost averaging in and I'm bringing my cost basis down. It's not the end of the world. And then, I would look to ride that all the way through. But I am a big believer in the phrase, it's all about time in the markets, not timing the markets. And it's been proven over and over again that's really lump sum and just holding has proven to be a much better long-term play than trying to time the market. So that's what I do. I'm just saying that's why I would do at least a 50% right now and then use the other 50% as a dollar cost average if I was just getting in to maybe help me out psychologically. I don't know if you know this because I don't talk about it to the end of my show, but I made the commitments starting January 1st. Every trading day of 2025.
Yeah.
I'm buying $210.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant. I love it. Yeah. Based on the 21 plan, right?
Yeah.
So that's the number, right?
And that was like, cause I was like, I did the math and I'm like, okay, I'm good putting in about 4,000 or 5,000 a month into this. And so that's where I got to 200 and then was like, let's go 210. But now my brother-in-law is doing $21, awesome for him. There's a college student that's doing $2.10 a day. Awesome for him. I'm sure there's people that are doing $2,100 a day. Amazing for them. Like, watch out.
Yeah. It's one of these things also when you like, obviously there's an element of you watch stuff, you study stuff, something clicks, right? And for me personally, there's also just the knowing, right? And there's the idea of like, okay, I can get as much knowledge and data as I want. And I look around and observe smart people. I've been watching Michael Saylor since he got in 2020 relentlessly. I love the guy. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's incredible to shareholders. I think the fact that he has lived through a huge drop in Bitcoin and never sold a dime makes him extremely
Dude,
credible.
I did a 1 hour and 48 minutes presentation on the complete history of MicroStrategy. So you can just type in the complete history of MicroStrategy. You'll find it. It's an hour and 8 minutes long. MicroStrategy was launched in 1989. It had a pretty decent run in the 90s. It crushed it with the dot-com bubble,
Yeah. Yep.
and then got flipping
Destroyed. Yeah.
for
Destroyed.
like 300 to 45 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he rode that out. So if you don't think Michael Saylor knows a little something about holding and about staying true to your beliefs, you don't know Michael Saylor. Like, this guy is never selling his Bitcoin. He knows it's the perfect preservation of capital. He's never selling. He's never selling. Ted, he is never selling.
I know. And he also, he also predicted, like, he put a lot of his net worth into the Apples and the Googles and all that back in 2011.
Oh, so I have a couple great video clips I posted of him talking about Apple in 2012.
You should do that. Yeah.
I have
when he didn't have gray hair, when he had remember when he had to, he looks, I think he looks,
he's got our color hair. Yeah, no, he looks better now.
Totally.
He does look better now.
But he predicted that wave, and he put in a big percentage of his net worth, and he got rich off that, man.
The mobile wave. That's what
he
wrote the book.
He wrote the book,
The Mobile Wave. But then he held up his phone. He's like, "You don't think this is going to change the world? You're an idiot." Mm-hmm. And he was 100% convicted then. He made an asymmetrical bet on that. And guess what? He won asymmetrically. And now he has 11,000 Bitcoin of his own.
That's right. And I think there's just an element of, like, you get the data and and you go with what you know. And I think the best advice somebody can take is their own personal advice and counsel. Like, get the data, do your research, observe it for yourself, and know for yourself, and make decisions on your knowing, And I think that's the best thing anybody can do for themselves, because that served me in this marketplace, particularly when you look around in the world. There's not a lot of people in your everyday life that adopted Bitcoin as an asset for themselves years ago. There's not a lot of people today who even understand it. And there's a very, 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 very small percentage that understand MicroStrategy, Yeah. And I think if the one thing that people are watching your channel, watching my channel, if you can just get educated as much as possible on this to get some resolve and knowing and understanding on this, I think when that knowing kicks in, it's game over, man.
And one thing that Michael Saylor said that's so genius, that again was like another click for me, was people are like, well, hey, why don't you also like diversify some of your Bitcoin into like real estate, into gold, into this? He's like, diversification is for suckers. He's like, I know that Bitcoin's the best preservation of capital in the world. There is no second best. Why would I ever invest in anything else? When they discovered what the best material to build a plane was, do you think that they said, well, let's add some copper there and some bronze and some styrofoam as well to diversify building this plane? No, you used the best material. Bitcoin is the best preservation of capital that has ever existed. And so the fact that Michael Saylor has recognized that so far ahead of anybody else, has 471,000 Bitcoin of permanent capital. That's one thing that people don't get. This is permanent capital, unencumbered, that MicroStrategy owns. The next closest is a mining company, Marathon, at like 40,000. And then after that, it drops down to like 9,000. I mean, there's nobody's even close.
Yeah.
He's won this game.
What is it? 2.4% of the supply they own now, right?
And it's, I mean, and this is the thing. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, but as Bitcoin gets more expensive, like he's going to go faster for a lot of reasons we won't talk about today because it's technical jargon, but it's going to be crazy how much Bitcoin he buys this year.
I don't think people know what they're in for in 2025.
Nope.
Like some price predictions here, and then I want to ask you some other questions to use comparable data to assets and investments a decade ago, the last decade, compared to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. I've been in the financial business since the time I was 21. It was the first business I was in. For a decade, I lived with those companies, different types of investments, insurances, trusts, planning, been around some of the top attorneys in the world. And I want to do a little comparison of like the old traditional financial world to today, because I don't think there's any comparison, but we should compare it for people who are stuck in that world. Okay. So, and we're going to get into that, but your prediction, what's your What's your conservative prediction for MicroStrategy in 2025? What's your bullish prediction? And then what's your super bullish? What's your super bullish? Nobody's gonna, there's not financial advice, but there's just your super bullish of like, I actually like lay awake at night and be like, this could potentially happen, super bullish type prediction. What is it for you?
Okay, let me start by saying this. Like, I know that the title of this episode is MicroStrategy Huge Price Prediction 2025.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna follow that by saying you're going to have to carry the weight on this one. And I'm gonna follow that by saying the reason for this is the reason for that is this. I love Bitcoin and really feel like I have a great grasp on Bitcoin. Um, I've also spent hundreds and hundreds of hours learning about researching, doing deep dives into MicroStrategy. And I really believe I know and understand MicroStrategy to a high degree. As high as people like Ben Workman and Punter Jeff and yourself, absolutely not. What I do with MicroStrategy today, my show,
Yeah.
is I curate the best content that is out there on X, on the media outlets, via YouTube, videos, you name it. I curate that and I package it up into a really high energy, enjoyable watch that, like you mentioned, is about 12 to 20 minutes on any given day based off of how much news there is in the world. And it's for people that want to press the play button as they're driving to work because they don't have the time that I have to curate this stuff. And I'm doing it anyways, so I'm doing it for them. So when it comes to price predictions, I have no flipping idea. What I do
Yeah.
know is this: way higher. Like, that's my answer. When people ask me, because it's in the comments all the time, like, what's your price? I'm like, higher. My prediction is higher. I don't know what it's going to do because I don't know what Michael Saylor is going to do. When he came out with the preferred stock offering today and just like blew people's minds
Yeah.
with like what he's doing with the 8% and the strike price, and then he's going to come out with the convertible bonds, and then they're going to be oversubscribed, and then he's going to be slamming the ATM, spiking our Bitcoin yield through the roof. I mean, he's going to be doing so many crazy things. And then guess what? How's the market going to react to it? Because if the market knew what they were doing, this stock would already be $1,000, $2,000 stock already if
Yeah.
they knew,
Yeah.
but they don't. So many people are, they have fear, they have uncertainty, they have doubt. And so
Yeah.
they're just like selling at the worst possible time, in my opinion, because they don't get it. And they're taking advice from people who don't get it because so few people get it. I get it. You get it. Jeff gets it. Ben Workman gets it. You know, the MSTR True North, like micro community, they get it, but there's so few people that actually get it.
Sure.
But where is it going? I have zero idea the numbers because there's so much psychology behind the trader, the retail psychology. And then when nation state adoption happens and when pension funds and state, you know, pension, it's going to get crazy. It's going to be insanity. So I'm going to say this: higher. And then I'm going to be so bold, Ted, that I'm going to say,
be bold, buddy. Be bold.
I'm going
Right.
to say much higher.
Okay.
So you give the price predictions.
I'm going to go with what I think. Okay.
Yes.
This is just my observation. This is not financial advice to anybody, and do not make any financial decisions based on this. Okay. This is how I'm basing my decisions. Okay. So number one, if I look at last year, okay, Bitcoin did about 121% growth in 2024. MicroStrategy was approximately 350% growth. All right. So that's a 3x to what Bitcoin did. Okay. Maybe because it's newer, it caught, you know, some hype in 2000, good hype in 2024. You know, he announced his 21-21 plan of buying $42 billion of Bitcoin. Once he did that, the price shot up.
That was the best thing I've ever seen.
It was amazing, right? So do I think we're going to see like MicroStrategy, if Bitcoin doubles, do I think MicroStrategy is going to 3x it? I don't think we're going to see a 3x on my bullish case. On my super bullish, do I think we could? Yeah. So I think on my conservative case, I'm looking and going, great. They 3x Bitcoin last year. We know MicroStrategy hit $530 after hours in trading last year. Okay. So to think that it's not going to get back to 530, I don't see any universe or world where it does not hit 530 again. Right. So if I was investing today newly, which I shared yesterday. Like, I have a windfall of cash coming in a couple weeks from a trust. I'm going to take that money from the trust, which actually happens to be a life insurance policy. What's funny, and I'm going to invest it into Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. Okay.
So you're turning a life insurance policy into a generational wealth policy. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Like a dead, pathetic life insurance policy, which I used to be in the business, right?
Oh no.
That has a 5% or sometimes 7% after you take out the fees growth, when the money supply is printing 7% a year and you make zero progress flying into a 7% headwind. So let's not even go there. Okay. So I'm just emptying that thing out. And I am investing the great majority of it into Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. I don't know the allocation yet. Okay. So with that, I'm like, okay, even at this price point, whatever it's going to be in 2 weeks when I get the dough, I don't see us not hitting 530. That's like my bear case is 530. Okay. My conservative case this year is I think we're at a 700. Okay. And then my bullish case is 1,000. And my super bullish is I think we could hit 2,000. I think
2,000, 10 for 1 stock split, back to 200. Yeah. Life is good.
That's my super bullish. And the other thing to say is like, and to not go like exact data on this, because this is just from memory. But before the stock split, I remember when I had an own MicroStrategy at the time. I watched it run up to 1,900 before the stock split. Okay.
Then it dropped to 1,100.
It dropped to 1,100. And we sat in that range for a while, guys. So I remember sitting there and being like, wow, we just lost 45% on paper. I sold nothing, not a dime. Okay. And I just remember sitting there watching and go, okay, great. So this is what the stock does, right? It's going to rebound. We were in the beginning phases of the bull run. And so I just think we're in that pattern right now of like, great, we had a drop. We've seen MicroStrategy do this before. People are wondering why it's chopping. Why is Bitcoin going up and it's not going up? This is what MicroStrategy does. And so those are my price predictions for the year. Don't hold me to it. I think I'm going to be right on my conservative case for sure. I definitely think we're going to hit a 700 this year. To not double would be crazy, because if Bitcoin goes to 150, MicroStrategy is going to do a double.
I like what you're laying out. I really do. And, for me, seeing what MicroStrategy did do when it went on its run in Q4, it was like, it was that coiled spring, for over the summer, choppy, choppy, choppy. Then Michael Saylor comes out, is dropping some hints about what's going on. The stock starts running. Then he drops the 21-21 plan. The stock explodes, overheats, to 530, and then, comes back a little bit to reality for a while. Yeah. And that's why this stock is so tough as an investor, because it goes way too high and then way too low for where it really should be ranging around.
Yeah, totally.
And that just shakes out so many people.
And it's kind of like the gym, bro, right? Like you start off with Bitcoin with maybe like 15-pound dumbbells with Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? Like first off, you go to the gym and then you realize, like, if you're in traditional financial products, one day you wake up and you're like, this shit doesn't work. I need a new trainer, man, right? And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh God, okay, I got a new trainer who's actually in present time in the 21st century. That's Bitcoin. And Bitcoin trains you on volatility. And you're like, okay, I'm getting trained. I'm getting used to the volatility. You watch it go up and down. And then when you get strong, that's when you're in MicroStrategy, and then you get trained again because your muscles go to a new height and a new level of exhaustion and new level of excitement. Because as you hit those peaks and you come down, you start to see what real volatility is. And if you don't have the stomach for it and you haven't trained on Bitcoin yet, you definitely don't have the stomach for MicroStrategy.
And by the way, you need to have a complete mindset shift, which I was able to adopt. And it wasn't right away. It was over time and watching more of Michael Saylor's commentary and learning more about how MicroStrategy works best. Is you've got to love the volatility, because it's the violent moves up and then the violent moves down. It's that volatility that makes it so attractive to the options markets, to these convertible bond traders. Like if there wasn't this volatility, it would not have the opportunity that it has to stack so much Bitcoin in such a short period of time. So you just, if you really believe that you're a long-term MicroStrategy holder and investor, you just have to try hard to shift your mindset and say, the volatility is the vitality. The volatility is a feature. It is not a bug. It is the fire that is lighting everything. So when it screeches down, I'm like, yes, that is life. And then when it screeches up, I'm like, yes, that is life, because both are true. And if anything was ever going up and to the right only, that's not life. That doesn't exist. It can't happen in the way that we want it to happen, because that's not how a true asset like a MicroStrategy can and will ever perform. I mean, Bitcoin's a 60 vol. MicroStrategy is at least 120 vol, and sometimes it's going to be even more when he gets up to, the 25 to 30% leverage that he's going to get to. Or right now, he's at like 13% total leverage, and it's crazy.
It's a wild stallion that you'll never tame.
And you shouldn't want to tame it. That's the thing. You have to say, I don't want to tame the stallion, because as soon as I tame the stallion, it loses all of its value.
Completely. Then it makes it a traditional financial product, which you don't want. You're not in MicroStrategy for a traditional financial product. You're in it for the booms, the ups and the downs. You got to be able to withstand, but also you just got to have a knowing of where it's going. Now, personally, I am taking profits this year, so I will not ride through this thing, dude. And ride through. I will hold some, but
I was going to say, like, do you have a percentage that you're going to hold? Is it 10%? Is it 30% of your current bag?
I don't know yet. And so what I'm basically going to do is two things. So I've been meeting with my whole team, accountants, attorneys, all this stuff, of looking at like the tax consequences, where I am, things to do to minimize my tax consequence on this. And the main thing that I'm looking at,
what he should be telling you?
What's that?
Move to Puerto Rico.
Move to Puerto Rico. I know. That's why I just talked to you, bro. So, but I think the main thing is, for me, I'm looking at what shapes up this year, right? So we have some time on this, right? Because I think we might peak out if we peak out on the bull run in August or September, but we have some time to see what's going to happen with Trump and the digital stockpile. Like, what's Congress going to decide on over the next 180 days?
Let me speak to that real quick and then continue. So when people are freaking out about the digital stockpile, I want you to remember, because I did the history. I researched back in 2020. You know what Michael Saylor did when he decided that he needed to do something? He went to his shareholders. He said, hey, we need to do something. So we're going to look at gold. We're going to look at real estates. We're going to look at stocks. We're going to look at alternative investments. And we're going to look at something called Bitcoin too. And then what did he do? He went away and he went deep the rabbit hole on all of those things. And then what did he find? That Bitcoin was the only path, the perfect preservation of capital. And he came back and he said, we're doing none of that other trash. All we're going to do is go all in on Bitcoin forever and ever and ever. And guess what? That's what I'm kind of foreseeing is going to be happening with this digital stockpile, is that, of course, the government has to have some kind of stable coin in there as well. I mean, that's just a thing that has to happen. And then they're going to come back after looking at the other trash that's out there. And they're going to say, we're not going to pick an altcoin. That's not what the government does. We're going to go all in. This is my prediction. We're going to go all in on the only perfect preservation of capital, which is Bitcoin. So they're going to get there. It's just, they can't start there.
I fully agree that
they have to do their due diligence.
I fully agree. It should be Bitcoin. I think we're so, I don't think there's,
but I think we should be okay with the government taking this path, because they're clueless. They're not where you and I are knowledge-wise. They're where we were 7-8 years ago. So give them a chance to do the work. And the only work points to Bitcoin.
Yeah. And I mean, can you imagine the government sitting there and analyzing Solana and things like that and looking at 10 other cryptos? They should literally just look at Bitcoin, and they should do Bitcoin.
Well,
right?
They should look at all of them, because they need to have an understanding of what the risks of going with, potential trash in that area. And then that just will make them so much more clear why Bitcoin is the only option.
Yes, if they can understand it, you know what I'm saying? Like, if they can understand it and really understand what the blockchain is, I think they have some study ahead of them to really understand, like, what is the blockchain technology? What is Bitcoin first? And then you can compare other data. And you're right, it is smart to look at other assets.
Just because they're clueless on everything right now. So they have to gain an understanding, because they're going to have an understanding for regulations going forward as well.
And wouldn't it be great if what's his name, if Saylor led the charge on helping them understand it better?
Who better?
He would be the appropriate guy to do that.
Who's better?
Right?
Because
So
because he's not the kind of person that's like going to shove something down your throat. He's going to say, "Hey, like this is why I came to this conclusion. I'm brilliant. I'm a
mhm,
genius." He's not going to
mhm,
say that. It's just going to be obvious.
mhm.
Draw your own conclusions,
Yeah.
and
That comes through in the intention of his
yes,
communication anyway. He doesn't need to say it, right?
exactly,
So I
exactly.
think with the way I'll look at how much MicroStrategy I'm gonna hold is a couple things. One, what's gonna happen with the stockpile, right? Two, we continue to see the adoption of states going in. We have 15 states already, maybe more, that want to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Three, companies are going to keep adopting the Bitcoin standard. So we'll see that. Four, MicroStrategy is going to continue to buy. Five, will that be enough to where maybe, and this is a big maybe for me, we could carry through to where we don't have this huge run up and huge run down because of the amount of institutions and the amount of governments and the amount of nations that could be pouring into Bitcoin. So I'll make that decision, start looking at it heavily 4, 5, 6 months down the road of what I'm going to do there. But I
Mhm.
don't want to ride up. I mean, I've already done extremely well on it. So I don't want to ride it all the way up and then ride it all the way down. And
And just imagine if you could sell for 0% capital gains.
I know, bro. I'm
Ugh.
gonna be. I'm coming over to visit. And I'm gonna move there. Okay. I was literally talking about where I'm gonna be living like yesterday. On this. So okay. So I gotta make some decisions fast. But anyway, that's kind of my basic plan for it. And I have some other things on mind. Like I'm a big Tesla fan. I actually rolled
Mhm.
all my. I've been holding Tesla since 2017, but I rolled pretty much all of it out to dump it into MicroStrategy in 2024. So I'm looking at that of what am I going to roll into next with the
Mhm.
portion I sell.
Smart. Yeah, I'm a believer in the 4-year Bitcoin cycle to a degree. I'm a believer in the global liquidity cycle, definitely being a big factor as well. So I'm keeping my finger on the pulse for both of those. I don't ever see myself, ever like not owning a substantial amount of MicroStrategy shares. But I could definitely see myself taking some profits. There's nothing wrong with that. If the stock really does heat up and it feels like it's the right time. And, I could definitely see myself doing that, especially because I don't pay capital gains. So I don't have to worry about the tax side of things.
Yeah. You live in a good place. He lives in Puerto Rico, in case anybody's wondering. So the capital gains rate there is how much?
0%.
Oh my God. Amazing. Amazing. So the last thing to cover here is like, let's just look at, like, I would love to get your viewpoint on traditional financial products. I grew up in a financial business where, hey, if you get 10% rate of return, you're doing great. I grew up in a financial business where you have fund managers who are managing people's funds for 1%, sometimes 1.5%, sometimes 0.5%, which we know over time fund management fees kill the return on a portfolio. So, like, what was your viewpoint prior to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy of, like, where were you putting your money, or what were you even thinking of the financial industry at that time?
Yeah, I was very focused on my business, Entrepreneurs on Fire, just, pouring myself into it and working hard on it every day. And then just being boring. I invested in index funds. I dollar cost averaged into the S&P 500. I chose 4 of the Magnificent 7 to do dollar cost averaging into as well throughout, like, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, like into that. And it wasn't really until I'd say 2022 that I started shifting all of that just into what I think is, clearly the winner, which is Bitcoin and MSTR.
Yeah, and then people around you, what's their viewpoint of friends, maybe family who don't really understand Bitcoin? What's their viewpoint of people around you mostly?
That it's just a very risky, unknown, kind of sketchy investment that, yeah, it may work out, but if it does, you're lucky. Where I feel like this is the least in need of luck I've ever been in my life for anything. I mean,
Yeah,
like, it's just to me, it's a certainty. It's just a matter of when. It's just time. It's just the matter of time. It's like that's why time in the market is everything for this. And that's
for
why I'm
sure.
just comfortable sitting back and just making it happen. And I will say one thing about doing MicroStrategy Today that I've loved, which I did not get, and I still don't get with Entrepreneurs on Fire because it's just a different platform, is I'm getting 300 to 400 comments on every single video. I do a video 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Every single video, 300, 400.
Mm-hmm.
These comments are amazing. 95% of them are awesome. Like, John,
Yeah.
thank you for the show. Love MSTR, long-term holder. This is great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Which is not what I expected going in. I had heard that YouTube was a pretty negative place in the comment
Yeah.
section and that stuff. So that was great to see. And, 5 to 10% are constructive criticism, which I also love because I've made my show a lot better because of constructive criticism. Like, John, this would be, and I just I take it all in and then I make my show better as a result. And I know my show is getting better every single day because I'm taking that feedback. But my whole point of what I'm sharing here is I read every comment that comes in. And one of the biggest comments, and I know you've seen this as well, is that people think that Michael Saylor hitting the ATM, selling shares at the market is a bad thing. Because guess what? It does depress the price action on some levels. It does actually have effect on that. But the fact that people think that because it depresses the stock price levels sometimes, and sometimes more, sometimes less, that it's a bad thing, it's so far from the truth because they don't understand the one thing they need to understand about MSTR. All Michael Saylor cares about, all MSTR cares about is increasing its long-term shareholders' Bitcoin yield. That is their KPI. That is their key performance indicator. That is what they focus on. So everything they do, selling shares at the markets, buying Bitcoin, convertible notes, buying Bitcoin, preferred shares, buying Bitcoin, everything they do is to increase our Bitcoin yields, our Bitcoin value per share as long-term shareholders. You need to fundamentally understand that if you're going to sit back, relax, and enjoy this ride and just stop saying like, oh, Bitcoin went up 1% today. Why did MicroStrategy not go up 2% today? I thought it was a 1x, a 1.5 or 2x play on Bitcoin. Like, no, it's not. Like, zoom out, like you mentioned earlier, 6 months, zoom out 12 months. It is. It's a 3x, it's a 2x, it's a 4x at times of what Bitcoin is going to do, but not day to day, not even week to week, because there's so many things that are happening. And so I have a video coming out that I would really recommend people watching. And I would like your feedback too on this, Ted, because I
Sure.
know
Yeah.
I can make it better and
Yeah.
I will make it better, but this is just my first go round of it. And it's coming out this Saturday and it's called "You Should Sell MSTR If ... And then I created about like a 15 slide presentation of really like 10 reasons why you should sell MSTR. I mean, all the reasons are because you fundamentally don't understand what MicroStrategy is. That's the nutshell. But I really go into reasons about like why the ATM is so valuable, why the convertible bonds are so valuable, like why you're complaining about the wrong thing. Because guess what? There are ETFs that are 2x levered plays of Bitcoin. If you want that, go buy that. I don't recommend them, and I'm not telling you to go I'm not telling you to go buy them because of something that you should learn about called volatility decay. So I don't recommend those products. I don't recommend anything because I'm not a financial advisor. But if you want a 2x play on Bitcoin, that's your option. That's not MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is an asymmetrical, like endless upside play on what it means to be the Bitcoin treasury company of the world, what it means to increase your and my Bitcoin yield by 86% last year, already by 3% this year. And we're still in the first month. Like, and he hasn't even done some of the big things yet.
Yeah.
So this Saturday, you should sell Bitcoin if, and my whole point about that is, so now, thankfully, in the comments, I have a link that I'm just going to drop every time somebody drops a comment about that. I'm going to say, watch this video because
I think that's
you
brilliant.
should sell MSTR.
I think that's brilliant. I love the title, number one. Number two, I want to acknowledge you for your videos and all the work you put in. You do a phenomenal job.
A lot of work.
You do a great job. To do that amount of research that you do and what you provide to people is fantastic. Okay, I just want to say that. And you pop up when I turn on my phone in the morning. There's JLD
already in
on the thing. Yeah, it's great. So it's
where
fantastic.
are you at in this? Where are you at in the States?
Right now I'm in California, but I'm in,
Oh
I
yeah,
split,
so you're
I split,
Pacific time. So I'm
I split.
4 hours ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah, you are. So, so great. So great. So on that, and there's also like two things to look at. I just want to comment on what you're saying on like Bitcoin per share. And there's a great, if you want to go dig this up, James from Invest Answers does a really good job on this, where he shows the example at that time, which was a month ago. He did this video. It's a YouTube channel called Invest Answers. He's great. So you've got like, if you were looking at Bitcoin per share right now, when Bitcoin was at about $100,000 price point, you had MicroStrategy was at like 0.45, right? Not per share, but 0.45 Bitcoin. Okay. So when you looked at 0.45 Bitcoin today, you're looking, you're like, well, why would I go buy this thing when I'm only getting 0.45 Bitcoin? Okay. And why would I invest in this when I can just go buy Bitcoin and get one Bitcoin? Right. But the idea of what he laid out in the premises is that, like, if you have one Bitcoin at $100,000 today, then when Bitcoin goes to $1 million, right, you still have one Bitcoin, right? And what he laid out in his math when he does a spreadsheet of this, and it's so brilliant, he shows that if MicroStrategy continues to do what they're doing and Bitcoin goes up to where eventually Bitcoin hits $1 million, the 0.45 Bitcoin that MicroStrategy shareholders have today in terms of the ratio could eventually be 6 Bitcoin. Right? So that is like, then what he's doing is he's increasing our Bitcoin per share every time he hits the ATM like that. And when he does converts as well and he buys more Bitcoin, we're getting even, the company's buying even more Bitcoin, which is good for the company. So when you look at 0.45 today and you look at the numbers, like, why would I buy this? Like, I'm not getting the Bitcoin that I would get if I just bought a flat out Bitcoin. Okay. So look at the math, because I put $100,000 into MicroStrategy today, and this is from 30 days ago, this math. I get 0.45 Bitcoin. I put 100,000 into Bitcoin today, I get one Bitcoin. So why I want one Bitcoin, not 0.45 with $100,000 that I'm going to put in. Now go project out the numbers that James did and take a look at this a couple years down the road, 4 or 5 years down the road, and you could have 6 Bitcoin when we hit $1 million with MicroStrategy, right? Versus one Bitcoin owning Bitcoin. And that is the kind of underneath the surface play of what MicroStrategy is doing, that they're very overtly telling you they're doing, but that's the potential for the shareholders in the future. So yeah, we see a momentary dip because the shares are diluted temporarily, but everything he's doing is accretive to get us more Bitcoin. So that's why MicroStrategy is a brilliant play. Brilliant.
And by the way, all of the hit pieces that come out by like the Wall Street Journal about the things that you just said, the beginning part, about how, why would you buy, $100,000 of MicroStrategy for like half a Bitcoin when you could
Yeah.
just buy a whole Bitcoin of 100,000, those type of things and other things that come out. It's just surface level laziness that people are just with no understanding of what Michael Saylor and his brilliant team are doing. It's crazy that they actually think that he doesn't have all this figured out, but they don't think that, because, and for number one, I get it, because they're probably doing 100 things a day very poorly. And so they're going to report on MicroStrategy very poorly because that's one of 100 things they're doing. They don't have the time, the energy, or the care because they're just doing 100 things. Michael Saylor is doing one thing. MicroStrategy is doing one thing, becoming the Bitcoin treasury company of the world. And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And that's perfect. And final thought on this is just like the simplicity of leverage I think is one basic way just to understand MicroStrategy and why the stock price goes up more than Bitcoin. It's very simple. Like if I have $1 of money and I'm going to put in my own money and I can invest $1, I'm going to make what $1 can do. But if I have the ability to go borrow $1, an extra dollar, right? So I put $1 of my own money in, that dollar turns into 2. But if I have $1 of my own money and then I can go borrow $1 for 0%, and now I have $2. When I have a double, my 2 is worth 4 versus my 1 being worth 2. That's just the simple concept of leverage. Now, can we create leverage like that? We don't have a company the size of MicroStrategy. Do we have the ability to go get loans from banks? Yeah, but not at a 0% interest rate. Could we do some leverage in our own portfolios? Yeah. Do I recommend it? No. So when you look at MicroStrategy, they have the ability to use intelligent leverage, right? Where big investors are willing to loan them money at 0%. And so now they have their $1. Now they have a second dollar, which people are willing to loan them. And then when they issue shares, they have a third dollar. So you're looking at, they can play versus somebody's normal $1. They can play a second dollar and a third dollar. So now $3 becomes 6 versus your $1 becoming 2. So the simple concept of leverage, that's what they're doing in theory. And it's no different than real estate moguls have been doing for years.
Yeah. And by the way, when the MNAV is like 3, it even gets better. It's them getting $3 for their $1.
Yeah.
And what shocks me, by the way, now that you bring this up, and I've thought about this before, but not like in a public forum, is that how does Warren Buffett not get this? Because how did Warren Buffett do it? He did it by buying insurance companies, by buying Geico, and by using their float to invest and to make exponential wealth.
Right.
This is what MicroStrategy is doing, but he's doing it with Bitcoin, the best preservation of capital in the world. I mean, this is, if Warren Buffett was 80 years old, he'd get it. He's sailing off into the sunset. God bless him. He's been amazing. Yeah. But I mean, how does he not get it? I don't know.
Yeah. And and that is exactly what you're saying is another form of leverage. I mean, I worked for an insurance company. So for those of you who don't know the float concept, it's like you pay premiums into insurance company, right? Not everybody's going to file a claim at once so that you have to pay out the claims. So you have a whole bunch of money you take in that you don't have to pay out until the future. And they take your premiums and they invest them. It's leverage, right? Intelligent leverage has been being applied for just hundreds of years, you know? So that's what MicroStrategy is doing. It's actually very simple if one understands Bitcoin. It's very simple to understand what they're doing.
It is very simple. Yeah. The core premise, you have to understand and believe in Bitcoin to enough level to realize, like Michael Saylor says, like if it's not going to 0, it's going to 1,000,000. So if you believe it's not going to 0, there's needs to be so much certainty with the future of MicroStrategy. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Amazing, dude. Love the conversation. Like a lot of fun. It's great having you on here. It's fun to have somebody else to talk to on this stuff. It is. It's fun. It's fun to get up and present to somebody, but I'd rather have a conversation with somebody who's great like you and have just fun doing this. So thank you for doing this. Number one. Number two, again, I'm going to plug your show. There's no benefit to me of doing this. I just want to help you because you have great content. So can you tell everybody just what your show is and where they can go find your show?
Sure. The show is called MicroStrategy Today. It's right on YouTube. And it's a 7-day-a-week show. I get up every morning at 5:30 a.m. I walk my dog. I jump in the shower. I sit down on this computer at 7 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time because I'm in Puerto Rico. And by 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time, so 7 a.m. Eastern Time, I have published about a 12 to typically 17 minutes video about what I think are the most important topics in news articles and X posts and videos about MicroStrategy today. So I want to create this all-in-one shot for people that can just press the play button, go for your run, fold your laundry, walk your dog, jump in your car and go for a ride, and just know that you're going to get what, in my opinion, at least, is the most important information, news, updates, commentary around MicroStrategy every single day.
Amazing. Love it. I also just want to make a quick correction on something I said yesterday. So some of you are interested in MSTU. I see it in there. These are highly, highly leveraged funds. They're super, super risky. I personally put some money into this, as I told you yesterday. There is an erosion of the capital over time. So when I was giving an example yesterday, I was like, okay, if like the design of the fund is to do 2x, what I said is if it does 1.5x of MicroStrategy over time, okay, that could be a good investment. When I went back and I looked at my own portfolio, when I bought MSTU in October, when it was at like $4, its comparable return is about $1.40 better, about 40% better. So you're not getting a 2x when you hold it for 3 months. If somebody's doing it in short-term trading, not financial advice, I do trade this thing on a weekly basis as well. Works better in the short term, but when you hold something that has such high swings up and high swings down, and you have the high swings down, it erodes the intention of the fund of 2x over time. However, I'm still up close to 40% above my MicroStrategy holdings of what I bought at that present time in October. Okay. And if you're not in Bitcoin yet and you're not in MicroStrategy, probably the first things to get educated on, because this is not financial advice for investing, is to just get educated on Bitcoin, get educated on MicroStrategy, understand those, be prudent on anything you do, and know the risks. Okay. Cool. John, you're JLD. I like JLD. I'm going to say JLD. JLD are his initials, John Lee Dumas. Okay. You're amazing. Go check out MicroStrategy Today, his show. I watch his show. It's fantastic. That's why I wanted to have him on here. And you're in Puerto Rico. You're a stud. Love that you made that move. Okay. Good seeing you, man. And we'll see you all on the flip side, guys. Okay. Cheers.